All right, welcome. That's a way over the top intro. Welcome uh, to Screen Notes. That's the working title I have. It might change. I think I like to base it off of Spark Notes. If you remember from school, you could get everything Spark Notes about a book that you necessarily haven't even read. You can get every single tip and sort of breakdown of the book without having to read it. So this is a similar thing. Screen Notes. You can get idea what the movie series is about and my rating of it without having to actually watch it. Today we're looking at The Guilty. So it's actually came out yesterday, 1st of October on Netflix. Really highly anticipated film. It's one of those films that now are sort of coming out, and I think instead of going on into cinemas, they're probably going out to Netflix because it's just easy for everyone to access it. A film like this probably wouldn't do so well in cinemas, and I think you check it on Netflix, check it on Amazon Prime, people watch it because of the hype around it and because it's on the main page of Netflix and forget about it a couple of days later. I think this film unfortunately does fall into that category a bit of a forgettable film, but there's still quite a few things that I liked about it, and we'll look into it. Quick spoiler alert. I mean, I'll try not to give too much away, but there's a chance that I might sort of slip and mention things that you don't want to know about it. So if you haven't watched it and want to watch it first, stop watching now. But if you don't care, or if you've already seen it, then carry on. So it's about a police officer. I actually forget what his name is in the movie, but we don't really know what happens. But he sort of was a detective or an actual police officer, and he was kicked out and demoted to 911, sort of dispatching calls. People who, when you call 911, they pick up and relay your emergency. You can quickly tell that he's not enjoying that role. He feels like he can do more than just be there picking up the phones. In the past, he has done, and you can tell that something is kind of bad has happened to him. He's actually waiting to go on trial, but that's sort of where we're left off. And he's picking up quite a few calls until someone calls him a distressed girl who's been abducted by a man. The whole film is spent in a room, the police room. You only ever see Jake Gyllenhaal and some of the staff around. You never actually see any of the other characters he's talking to. The top 5 screen notes, things that I thought about the film and like to just highlight. First one being, don't expect this to be Taken. If you haven't seen Taken, another great film, a film of something sort of really bad happening, and right at the beginning of the film, when you start to understand what's happened to the girl who's been abducted, you feel so bad for her, and you kind of want that revenge. You want him to find a way to kill the guy, arrest the guy who has ultimately taken her, and you're so invested in it that you want that to be the case. Because this film is spent entirely within the room of where he's taking the call, he never actually is able to sort of deliver that vengeance in a way. There is elements of that and elements of you thinking he's about to win and get that revenge through somebody else capturing this abductor. It's much more a character study into the character of Jake Gyllenhaal, and understanding what he's going through in that situation and seeing him react to what's happened. So don't expect a big action film because it's not that. Number 2, edge of your seat for an hour and a half. Film's about hour 35. A constant sort of like tightening of your chest. You're always nervous. It never really calms down. Even in the more chilled scenes, where he's not really on the phone trying to figure out what's happening to this girl, he has issues in his like personal life that are happening. So you're constantly like watching him struggle. So it is the kind of film where you can't really relax at any point until the film finishes. If you don't like that kind of film, maybe you won't like this. But if you want a good like sort of thriller, suspense kind of film, this I think definitely would be a film for you. Number 3, top performance from Jake Gyllenhaal. Obviously, him being the only actor, he had to be able to carry the film and make it something that you'd want to watch and just watch him. But is it different enough? So people who haven't necessarily followed Jake Gyllenhaal and seen his previous films, maybe it's an incredible performance, and I think as a one-off, I think it's really, really good. He's excellent at sort of capturing so an emotion just with a look. He uses silence very well. but he can also be really loud and over the top and get angry, and you really feel that pain. Or even when he cries, you really feel sort of that pain as well. But having watched a few films of his, namely the one that I mentioned at the beginning with Antoine Fuqua, Southpaw, it is very similar. I think that he's playing a similar character. I think he's displaying very similar emotions, and but as someone who appreciates a different performance from an actor, something a bit different, which he has done, to be fair, he has actually branched out a lot. This film I thought was a little bit like samey for him. So if you appreciate that, take that into consideration. Number 4, get on with it. And by that I mean, because the film is only spent in that room, and as things begin to unravel, you understand more what's happening with it, and you then want to get to the end of it, because after a while I think you do get a bit tired of just seeing the same setting, same person. And I think that the film kind of dragged on a little bit. I do think that some of these other films where it's just one character, they tend to do like an hour film kind of thing, where you just get an insight into what's happening, and it ends, and you're like, okay, cool, that was good enough for what it was. Here, I think they were almost trying to make it into like a full feature film, like an hour and a half. And I found myself towards the end kind of like, all right, then can we finish this now? And finally, 5, which I actually think is really good in this film. And I think that in similar films where you only see one character, namely 2 films that are actually on Netflix. One's called Locke with Tom Hardy, and one's American Son, a really good film as well with Kerry Washington. These films where you only see one character are great at letting your imagination run wild, because you never actually see the other characters. You have to begin to imagine what they look like, and through their voice and tone, you can begin to imagine in your head what they might look like physically. But you also make a lot of assumptions about who they are as characters. So in this film, by hearing the abductor who's taken the woman talk and things that he's saying, you immediately assume that he's a horrible guy and like dirty and scummy kind of thing. But what I found was interesting is that they managed to do that because we just jump to conclusions immediately based on someone's voice, tone, whatever. But then as the movie unravels and you begin to realize that actually we made those assumptions, but that wasn't the truth, which is the same thing that Jake Gyllenhaal did on the phone. So we feel like we're constantly in that character. Those are my 5 screen notes. My rating of this film, I'm giving it a 6.5 out of 10. I think that when you get into 7 territory, it's already like quite a good film. A lot of Jake Gyllenhaal movies that I like are up there in the 7, 8s. I think 6.5 to me, what it means is a film that's quite good, really interesting sort of story, and a great character to watch for that hour. But don't think that it's going to be a film you're going to come back and watch several times. I don't think it's a film that you're going to watch and remember forever. But if you appreciate Jake Gyllenhaal, if you want to see interesting character study, and if you want to be on the edge of your seat for an hour and a half, this is a film for you. So that's about it. That was my top 5 screen notes on The Guilty, out on Netflix now. Give it a go and let me know your thoughts. Peace.